Good evening, everybody. My name is Judy A, and I am a recovered alcoholic. And I'm so happy to be here. So happy to see all your faces and so happy to be anywhere. I love Alcoholics Anonymous. I love Alcoholics Anonymous. I love my sobriety. I love being sober. My sobriety date is February 5th, 2006. So I'm in my 18th year of continuous sobriety, and I have not found it necessary to pick up a drink or a drug or a mood-altering substance in any of those years. And I owe that to Alcoholics Anonymous, specifically the fellowship that led me to the steps and the steps that led me to the God who has all power, the God that gave me the power, the God that gave me the gift. I was surrendered into Alcoholics Anonymous. It's through no virtue of my own that I'm here. I want to be very clear about that. It's not that I worked real hard. It's not that I drank real bad. It's not that I did anything or earned anything. It was through the mercy of a loving God that saw me struggling and saw the pain that I was in, and my desperation collided with His grace one morning on February 5th in 2006, and I have, I haven't left yet. So I'm 54 years old now. I got sober when I was 36 years old, and looking back, I think that all of a sudden I think 36 is really young. But at the time when I was getting sober at 36, I thought, man, 36 is old to be getting sober. I probably should have done that a long time ago. But God, in his perfect wisdom, got me sober when He got me sober. He got me sober as a result of all of this stuff. My last drink was on February 3rd. And the reason why my sobriety date is February 5th is because I got that drunk. I was drunk for 2 days. I drank a lot. And the point I want to make about my last drink, because I don't want to go through a whole drunk-a-log, because I learned when I got to AA that drinking's not my problem. Alcohol's my solution to a much deeper problem, a much more profound problem, to a soul sickness and a spiritual malady, to a brain that manufactures lies and delusions, and I buy it. My brain will tell me things that aren't true. Things like I'm not enough. Things like I have to get more. Things like you're thinking about me, or things like I'm less than you, or you're more than me, or I'm more than you and you're less than me. My brain is a constant manufacturer of just garbage and lies, and that's the upstairs. But the spiritual malady is the thing that continues to believe this brain that cannot differentiate the true from the false. And that's really the crux of my problem. But my last drink, I was living with my parents at 36 years old because I made a mess of my life again. I had moved from apartment to apartment, and this was like my third apartment in 18 months. That I lost in 18 months. And if you count my parents' couch, that would have been the fourth move that I had made from somewhere. I was very good in the interview for a job. I was very good in the interview for the apartment to fill out the application. I was very good at borrowing the money for the security deposit. And then once that happened, I was horrible at paying anybody back. And I was horrible at actually maintaining whatever crock of nonsense I told the boss in the interview that I was capable of doing, when in fact, I really wasn't capable of doing that. I never took a job beyond my raising. Like I knew how to type and use the computer and all that other stuff. It was just the part about being someone that he could rely on, being someone that was concerned about working and reliable and honest. That's not who I was. But I could make you believe that in the interview, right? So the long and the short of it is I got fired from a job and lost my apartment in October of the end of October in 2005, and I didn't get sober. I showed up at my parents' doorstep, and I didn't get sober until February 5th. So there were these periodic debacles when I had proximity and access to alcohol. By the time I got to my parents' house at 36 years old, I didn't own a car. I was unemployable. I had no money. And so it was easy for me to not really drink because I didn't really have access to alcohol. So every few weeks, an opportunity would come my way, either with a friend or an opportunity with a cousin or a parent to go someplace. And on those travels, whether it was just to the Walmart with my dad, or whether it was, some sort of contrived, visit with a friend, I found a way to get alcohol. And on those occasions, I got drunk. I didn't understand the phenomenon of craving like I do now. I didn't understand. With all of my might, I believed that I was just going to go out and take a drink to get the edge off. This is before I knew what it fully meant to be alcoholic. My brain convinced me that I'd been having such a hard time, that losing these jobs and losing these apartments, and finally my best friend roommate telling me that, she's not going to live with me anymore, and she's decided she's going to move out of the apartment we shared. And I just told myself, man, Judy, you really have the worst luck. I mean, and life is just so hard on you. It's just, you can't catch a break. And that made for more drinking. It made for more constant fear and tension, which also made for more drinking. Right. And so my greatest solution was, if you lived my life, you would drink too. I just have to get myself to a drink. And so it had been 3 weeks probably since my last debauch. My mom's clearly worried about me, right? She's 70 something years old, full-blown COPD and emphysema. Mom's on oxygen. Dad's 84, all 123 pounds, 5'1" of him. We're of Italian-American descent. My father came over to New Jersey via Ellis Island with his dad. And they were a hardworking family. And so but he had an iron fist. And so I came from like a blue collar working class Roman Catholic family who just wanted the best for their kids, dysfunctional as they were, believing in corporal punishment and strict Roman Catholic values and all of that other stuff. But none of that made me an alcoholic. That stuff might have made me thirsty, but it really didn't make me an alcoholic. Lots of kids have issues with their parents or issues with their raising. I know people who've had far worse childhoods than me, and they can step up to the bar and have themselves a cosmopolitan and go home. But I can't do that. And I didn't know at this time what it fully meant to be fully alcoholic. So I kept thinking that if I could just get out from underneath this black cloud and just have a couple drinks and have time to think about how I'm going to put this together. And I think that's why I love Alcoholics Anonymous so much. So when people were taking me through the book and I started reading Bill's story, I completely understood why he wanted to grab that bathtub gin and sit at the kitchen table and figure out how he was going to put his life together. He was going to take a couple drinks, get a bottle, and sit down and figure it out. He was going to Rubik's Cube his life, click, 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 and try to find the perfect combination of chutzpah and professionalism. And maybe I'll be a stockbroker, or maybe I'll be a lawyer, or maybe I'll get married. This is all the musings and these coming up, the ideaings, if you will, of a lunatic mind. Right. But when we're doing it, we really think it makes a lot of sense. And that's true. That was true for me. And so I just kept telling myself that if I could just get out from under, this black cloud and be able to drink like a lady and put my head together, I could make it back to New York City, which is where I was working. And I destroyed another job and another opportunity. And I just thought, I'll come back to my parents, for 6 months, and then I'll get my stuff together and I'll leave. So last drink, February 5th, I'm 3 weeks off my last debacle, February 3rd, rather. And my friend, Michelle, the one who I lived with that no longer wants to live with you, met this great guy, and she wanted to introduce him to me. And she was coming down the shore. I'm about an hour south of where her mom lives too. And she came down and she wanted us to all go out to dinner. And she was going to pick me up. And of course, I had no money. And I just said yes, that I would go. And I went into my mom, who was watching television, and I said, Michelle's going to come down. She met this new man, and she wants to go out to dinner, and I'd like to go. So, Mom, can I borrow $25? I mean, this is how I lived. Not thinking that alcohol's my problem, not thinking that I really have a problem, except for the fact that I had that bad luck. And my mom said, gee, Judy, give you $25. And I'm worried you're going to drink. I'm like, drink? Like, I don't understand. It was just, I was so offended. I was just so deeply offended that she was worried that I was going to drink. Of course, it's the same woman who 3 weeks prior to that found me in the laundry room, passed out in a laundry basket at 2:00 in the afternoon. The laundry room wouldn't be really a big deal unless you knew that it was a co-op laundry room. It wasn't actually a laundry room in her condo. It was the laundry room actually that was down in the laundry room space where everybody washed their laundry. And I passed out drinking Bacardi Silver, her not even knowing how I got the bottle. But the truth was that I manipulated my father when he went grocery shopping, and I got lost for a moment and went to buy a bottle with a $10 bill that I had found. And so this was how I lived. I'm 36 years old now, 35, And so she gives me the $25, and I'm feeling pretty good about myself. And I jump in the shower and I put on my makeup, and Michelle comes to get me, and we go out to the restaurant. And something happens to me, though. Once the money gets in my hand and we're on our way to the restaurant, I start feeling this pounding in my chest. My heart rate is speeding up, and suddenly I'm in a really great mood. I mean, I could fly, you know what I mean? I'm in this car, and I know that I'm going to a restaurant, and in that restaurant, there will be a bar, and I'm free from this house. And I'm not under the thumb of my mom. And I've forgotten the debacle of 3 weeks ago. I can't bring to the forefront of my mind with any sufficient force the humiliation of the problem that had happened 3 weeks ago. All I keep thinking about is I'm going to have a great time tonight, having no concern for my friend's welfare, who really just simply wants to introduce me to this great guy that she met. I'm not the least bit interested really in this great guy that she met. My heart starts to my heart rate starts to go up, and this excitement starts to come into my heart and my mind in a way that is indeed miraculous. And it begins to change my personality. And by the time we get to the restaurant, we're seated at the table, and I have $25 with which to spend. And I've already made up my mind by the time I sit at that table that I'm having the house salad for $5.95. And she's talking to me, and Judy, this is Warren, and isn't this a lovely place, this restaurant? And I'm really not hearing anything she's saying. In fact, I might not even be telling you the truth by saying to you that she was saying, this is Warren, and isn't this a lovely restaurant? Because honestly, I don't know what she said. All I know is that when I sat in that seat, my brain began to look for the waitress. Now, I hadn't been sitting all but 30 seconds, but I was concerned as to why the waitress hadn't already come to the table to ask us what we wanted to drink. And I made up my mind that I was going to get a glass of Pinot Grigio. And so I was worried about not having enough money. And somehow in the conversation after my first glass of wine, it was told to me that Michelle and Warren would be picking up the check. And so at that point, I ordered the chicken cordon bleu and another glass of wine, because since I'm not paying for it, I kept the $25 snugly in my pocket and began to eat and drink and be merry. But I only had 3 glasses of wine at that dinner, because somehow I was able to control it on the promise that if I could just get out of that restaurant as soon as possible, I would figure out a way to get her to stop at the packaged goods place, and I would pick up a bottle of something on the way home. And that's precisely what happened. But I will tell you that after my 3rd glass of wine, and after making the decision that what I really needed to do was get home to finish the job, I kept checking my watch and asking for the check, and they wanted dessert, but I'm sure that I wasn't paying attention to anything they were saying. I'm so selfish and so self-involved, not only when I'm drinking, but in general. My friend called me for what she wanted to do was share a great experience or what was going on in her life. And basically all I wanted to do was think about me and talk about me and monopolize the conversation and figure out a way to get what I wanted to get. right? To use people, place, and things to satisfy some unsatisfiable darkness and need in my spirit. Of course, I don't know this yet. So we get the check, and now I'm even more antsy, although I have a little glow about me, and I've had 3 glasses of wine deep, and I've managed to have a nice long cigarette out in the parking lot. And I say to her, it looks like I'm low on cigarettes. Mind you, this is the same roommate that decided not to live with me because of my drinking and my use of illegal substances. So I didn't want to be a mess in front of her. And so I had the cunning and the manipulation and the dishonesty to say that I was running out of cigarettes. And she stopped at the Miracle Bar. What a miracle it was that night, where they also sold packaged goods. And I picked up a bottle of rum and I put it in my backpack and got back in the car and said, "Thank you so much. I've had a lovely evening, guys. And you will be taking me home." And they said, "Yes, we will." And they dropped me off home. And I walked in the door of my parents' home together. I mean, at this point, I wasn't, drunk and pie-eyed. I could still keep it together. I've only had 3 glasses of wine, and my mother could sigh a sigh of relief. Now, I'm sure that for the 3 hours I wasn't at the house, or 2 hours, or however long that was, there was probably this nagging thing in the back of her mind that maybe I would come home, or maybe I wouldn't, or maybe I'd come home in a decent condition, or maybe I wouldn't, or maybe she would have to tell my dad things that she really doesn't want to tell my dad, right? My father also not really understanding entirely what's going on. But I walked in the door bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and "Good evening, Mom, and how's Michelle?" And she was great, and we had a lovely time. And I went into the bedroom and I began to put on my pajamas. It's now like, I don't know, 8:30 at night. And my mom says to me, "I want to hang this picture here in the living room." And she was watching NCIS. I don't know if you guys know that show, but she loved Mark Harmon. I don't blame her. And she said, I need some help with hanging this picture. And, this is a good TV show if you'd like to watch it with me. She was just so happy that I was home, and I said, "Yep, I'll be right out." So I went into the bedroom and I got changed, and I cracked open that bottle, and I took a nice big long swig, and I put the cap back on the bottle and went into the bathroom, and I stuck it in the towel closet, and I came out and began to hang the picture. She wanted me to hang the picture because when my father hangs pictures, he has to break out a level and a pencil, and it's just so annoying. So she waited for him to go to bed so that she could just get me to nail the darn thing to the wall, and I was happy to oblige. And then we started watching the television show, but that one swig wasn't enough. And I knew that I had the bottle in the towel closet. And so about 15 minutes later, I got up and I went into the towel closet. And I took another big swig off of that bottle and I put it back in the towel closet, and I came back out, and I'm still holding it together. And well, you can imagine that by the umpteenth time of going back into the closet and taking a swig out of the bottle, I never made it out of the bathroom. In fact, I drank the bottle so quickly and so well that I kind of passed out in my own tears. And, I laid on the floor in the bathroom after using the toilet, and I just kind of laid there and half in and half out of consciousness with my feet up against the door. And of course, my mom's wondering, well, what the hell happened to her? She went in and she didn't come out. So she grabs her oxygen, I would imagine, because I wasn't there. But I'm surmising that she grabbed her oxygen and drug it over to the bathroom door. And when she tried to open it and found that she couldn't because my feet were in front of it, well, I'm sure she began to panic. Not knowing what was wrong with me and seeing me come home sober. I mean, it had to be something like an aneurysm, or maybe I passed out on the toilet seat, or maybe I had a heart attack, or maybe I hit my head on the sink and gave myself a concussion. Who really knows? And I just remember hearing the door pushing and pushing, and my mother yelling for my father, and my father gets up and he's trying to open the door, and I rustle in a tussle, and maybe I move around because of the excitement, and I'm still on the floor, and my mom comes in, and I'm not dead. No heart attack, no serious injury, just drunk. And just how baffled she must have been. Like, how did this happen? She came home sober and I saw her, and just the level of deception. Do you know what I mean? The level of betrayal, that I'm sitting there watching television with the woman. after she begged me before I went out to not drink. Now, that might seem like a ridiculous story, and to you, it might not mean that much. But when you consider that I've done something just like that umpteen times to every single person that cared about me in my life for the last 10 years, you're getting a picture of what my alcohol, I mean, just losing jobs and losing relationships and betraying people's trust and taking things that don't belong to me and all of it, and the whole time feeling myself justified because of some excuse that I made myself that I later found out on my 4th step was a total crock of baloney. Right? I mean, right down on this 4th step, by the time I got to the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, all the people you resent and the horrible things they did to you. But by that 4th column, I'm beginning to see the truth. And the truth is that, like George Bailey, I really had a wonderful life. No one was out to get me and people did the best that they could, but I was so self-conscious all of the time. I wasn't God conscious. I wasn't other conscious. I was self-conscious. And that self-conscious is that self-consciousness is the selfishness that they talk about on page, I think it's 63 in the big book, or is it 62 in the big book? Selfishness and self-centeredness, that we believe is the root of our trouble, driven by 100 forms of fear and self-delusion. That's my alcoholism. That's why I drink. I drink because I can't stop thinking about me, about what I look like, about how I appear, about my future, about my past, about what I need you to do for me, or what I think I need to do for you, or will I get married or will I won't? Have I gained weight? Have I lost weight? What about me? Are you thinking about me? I'm all I can think about. I'm all I think about. I'm all I think about. So when I take a drink, that can stop. Momentarily, I can really be present. And when I tell you that I like your scarf or I'm really enjoying the band, I mean it. The problem is that because of my alcoholism, because of the compulsion in my body, I can't stop there. I've always wanted to stop there. I have memories of having a couple drinks and really being present with the people and the noise in my head finally being quiet. I remember those memories. I remember memories when the alcohol worked and I could be present and we can share a moment and dance on the dance floor. The problem is that once the phenomenon of craving kicks in, I can't stay in that spot. I go to that place and then I have to have another drink and then another drink and then another drink and then another drink. And I don't stop drinking until I'm stopped, until I either run out of alcohol or run into a brick wall, which has happened. I'm either passed out or I run out of money or I didn't know what I didn't know. So when they told me that the first drink gets me drunk, today I understand what that means. What it means is that if I can pick up a drink and feel all right for 15 minutes, but I'm never, ever, ever going to stop there. Because once I put the first drink into my body, I lose the power to choose and control how much I'm going to drink or where I'm going to end up. But I had to do this experiment over and over and over and over. And if you're as alcoholic as I was, there's no middle of the road solution. I mean, I just kept trying this experiment over and over. Talks about that and more about alcoholism, the different ways we tried to control our drinking, only drinking at weddings, only drinking on the weekends, never drinking if I have to work. I mean, I tried it, but once you begin controlling something, it's already controlling you, right? And so I was that alcoholic. I have this disease in the very worst way because I can't stand being sober. And I can't stand being drunk anymore because I'm unable now to even reach the sweet spot. That moment of feeling good or that moment of being all right is going right to oblivion anymore. And I have no idea whether or not 3 drinks is going to land me on the rocks, or whether or not I'm going to have to drink 12 drinks. But damn it, I keep trying, because I have an obsession of the mind and a compulsion of the body. I obsess about it to the point where, the only thing that can cure that obsession is alcohol. And I succumb to it again, and I have a drink, and that drink is followed by 6 or 10 or 20 more drinks. And then I find myself pounding on the bar or waking up in a place that I don't know where I am, wondering how it could happen to me. So I hope I've qualified that I'm an alcoholic for you guys. I hope that that's my experience, right? We talk about experience, strength, and hope. That's my experience. And that's about all I'm willing to share at this point about alcohol and about the way that I drank. So I woke up on February 5th, and I remember laying in a twin-size bed in my parents' house, and I just knew it was over. I opened my eyes, and for 30 seconds, all was well. It was just a regular Sunday morning. And then, like a freight train, bits and pieces of what had happened the night before came speeding through my brain. You know, it's like flashes in a movie, like flashing, seeing my mom crying, and flashing and remembering the restaurant. And then another flash that I saw my father dragging me out of the bathroom, and another flash that I remember crying, and another flash, like just flashes, like it's the speed of sound of what transpired the night before. And I couldn't breathe. I just couldn't breathe. What a gift that I was just, my blood was cold and I couldn't even draw breath. And I said, my God, I can't do it anymore. I can't do this anymore. You're right. You win. You're right. I know I'm alcoholic. It's the alcohol. I know it, and you win. You know, I surrender. Whatever, I'll do whatever, you know. And I had no idea what I was saying. You know, I'd never been to Alcoholics Anonymous. I'd never had that experience before. And so we contacted a friend of the family who knew an alcohol and drug counselor, who recommended that I go to my first AA meeting. And I went to my first AA meeting, and I'll tell you, I don't remember anything. I remember them passing a book around. I remember raising my hand and saying that I was new. But my second AA meeting, I remember that meeting. And that my second AA meeting, they were reading this book. And I didn't own this book. This is the book. This is the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, with the Alcoholics Anonymous title. And they were reading more about alcoholism and the ways that we try to control our drinking. And this is a group book at the time. This is mine, but at the time it was a group book. And I'm reading it, and we're going around the room, and everybody's reading a paragraph, and I am weeping, tears all over this book. Because never in my life, I'm 36 years old, and I've been drinking like that. I've been drinking like a pig. I've been drinking disordered. I've been drinking diseased for my entire life. And no one ever spoke to me the way this book spoke. No one ever knew with absolute certainty precisely what was wrong with me and precisely how to get out of it. This book, and the people who had practiced this program, right, which was suggested as a program of recovery, they told me that there was a way out. They told me that I had to do some things, but that there was a way out. And I got a sponsor, and I got into this work. And I did my first step. I knew that I was powerless, that my life had become unmanageable. And I came to believe that a power greater than me could restore me to sanity. You know, I was raised with a faith. I was raised with a religion. Let me rephrase that. I was raised with a religion, and I was raised around people who had tremendous faith that God could do anything. But unfortunately, I didn't believe that, as is evidenced by my life. I just thought God didn't believe in me, that I was just too bad, too wrong, too wayward. And who needed God anyway? He was just so distant, and I didn't understand it, even though I practiced it. But it's funny. That's who I called out to, though, after my last drink. It's funny that I thought I didn't know this God, that I thought that God was so distant, but I had no problem saying, dear God, help. I know you're right. I know, right? I know it's the alcohol, and I know that you can do it. And so I did come to believe that a power greater than me could restore me to sanity. It was clear that my life was insane. And I did make that decision once I started coming to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings and listening to these women share about how they were freed, that God had freed them from the bondage of self, that they were relieved from the obsession to drink. And I got to tell you, by my third meeting, I no longer was obsessed about alcohol, that God had removed the obsession to drink mercifully so that I could figure out with these women what was really wrong with me. And what was really wrong with me was that I was selfish and self-centered and driven by 100 forms of fear and self-delusion, and that I step on the toes of the people in my life and they retaliate. And when they do, I think that they got a problem. I don't understand why they're retaliating against me. And I'm distant, I'm separate, I'm alone. I think that I'm different than you. I think that I'm unique. I'm separated from God, and I'm separated from others. And I tell myself a story that I'm isolated and alone. And of course, all of that is bullshit. And I believe it. And the more that I believe it, the more isolated and alone I become. But once I get into this work and I start doing this 4-step and I start taking an inventory of how I've been showing up so far, and I let another woman in that 5th step, and we invite God in that hour after that 5th step, I get alone with my Creator, because that's what it says in the book. I get alone with my Creator and I thank him from the bottom of my heart that I got to know him better. Because once I start looking at this paper, I start seeing like, man, I can't even believe I made it this far. Like I've written a 4th step. Like I'm sitting here alone, silent and quiet with the creator of the universe, who's going to heal my broken places and lead me to dry land and remove from me the dishonesty and the darkness that I've been holding on to, thinking that it was just such a part of me, when in fact I realize it's not a part of me, it's a part of the disease that's trying to kill me, and there's treatment for it, and there's a God that is only too happy to help if I surrender to his will. And that's what that 3rd step prayer said. I offered myself to my creator to do with me whatever he will. And then I made a promise that from that moment forward, one day at a time, I was going to continue to do whatever was suggested in this suggested program of recovery. And I did. And I got into that 6th step and I became entirely willing to the best of my ability. And in that 7th step, I asked God to remove my judgment of other people and my fear. And I asked God to remove from me the dishonesty and the manipulation of other people. And I meant it. And I offered myself to my creator to have me, all of me, good and bad, and to remove these defects, not just that I may be helped, but that God may be glorified, and that the people there could be people that I could help by my experience. That's what this is about. I know very well the history of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I know very well what the first 100 did. I know all about the upper room. I know all about the prayers they said. I know all about the God they served. I'm not in a position to debate God or religious ideas. I did exactly what they said. And when they said, cast aside any prejudice you might have about organized religion and spiritual terms, I did that, because the truth was, I knew that in my moment of clarity, I called out to God. So I'm not going to get in front of y'all acting like I'm too cool for God. The reality was that the only time I didn't search for God in my recovery is because I knew that once I found God, this relationship was going to require me to do some things, like not continue to do the stupid shit that I've always done, to continue in that 10th step and watch for resentments and selfishness, to forgive quickly, to stick my hand out and help other people, to sacrifice sometimes my joy and my free time to a newcomer who might need help. And so the only time that I balk, the only time that I back up is when selfishness returns, because the truth of the matter is, today, in this day, my experience I gave you and my strength I'm telling you is God. As a result of these steps, I found God. And that God entered into my heart and mind in a way that is truly miraculous and began to accomplish for me those things that I could never do by myself. And that's this book. That's this program. And I made a decision that I wanted the full measure of what God was promising me. I don't want meeting makers make it recovery. I want rocketed into the fourth dimension of existence recovery. I want a life that's become more and more wonderful as time passes recovery. I want the abandon yourself to God as you understand God kind of recovery. I want the kind of recovery that says, see to it that your relationship with him is right and great events will come to pass. The entire foundation of my life is Alcoholics Anonymous as it pertains to my relationship with God. I have no other foundation. For 17 years, I built my life upon this rock that I have found as a result of these steps. And Dr. Bob himself said that if we have some sort of spiritual pride or intellectual pride that keeps us from understanding and applying what's written in this book, that he feels sorry for you because your Heavenly Father will never let you down. And that's been my experience for 18 years. I'm not about to water it down and tell a sick and suffering alcoholic, you can worry about the God thing another time. You can't worry about the God thing another time because the God thing is all you got. And we can circumvent it, and I can trick you into taking some steps, and then you're going to find out that it's God anyway. And I'm fine with doing that, but don't get it twisted. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path, and those who don't recover are people who have that are incapable of being honest with themselves. And the honesty we need is that I'm not God. I cannot do it. I've tried to run my life. I've tried to pick my husband and pick my job and try to help others on my own will. And my fourth column in my fourth step showed me that I lack the power. I can have moral and philosophical convictions galore, this book says, but the needed power to stick to them is not there. And the sooner I surrender, the sooner I get a good, effective picture of who I am exactly, then the sooner I can come into the family of God and take my rightful place, which is subordinate to the one who has all power. And it's in that space that I learn obedience and discipline and grace and mercy. And because I've received it, I can give it to you. And that's what the fellowship of the Spirit is. That's what the women who have stopped whatever they were doing from wherever they are, that are part of my we, that are on this meeting, my balcony people, my women who are here to support and encourage and let us know that there is one. God loves you and he wants a relationship with you. And I don't care what you call him, but that's the way out, you know? Abandon yourself to God. That's what it says in this book, and that's what I did. I never talked down to an alcoholic from a spiritual hilltop. I'm no saint. I can't maintain perfect adherence to these principles. But let me tell you something. It's the joy of my life trying to grow along spiritual lines. The joy of my life is sponsoring women and telling them about the God that I found. Because this book says that each individual, from their own experience and in their own language, describes how they establish their relationship with God. And that's how we get sober. That's my story. I was unable to stop drinking. I was unable to stop thinking about myself and my selfishness and dishonesty and manipulation. And then I followed the directions in this book, and God showed up. And today I don't drink, and I don't lie, and I show up when I'm supposed to show up. And my life and everything in it is a miracle. A miracle. What is this but a miracle of healing? I have been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence of which I have never dreamed. I used to snort cocaine out of a toilet tank and drink rotten beer with cigarette butts in it out of a Solo cup and not care at all what was in it. I woke up in places. I've been arrested. I've been in jail. I've physically assaulted other human beings. And I have been changed. I have been reborn. And that's not some religious jargon. That is the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. So I hope I brought you a good message, and thanks for letting me share.